Harmonium?
This one.
Is there a harmonium?
There it is.
There it is. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Swami, Romapada, Ananta Puti Vaishnavrinda ki, Sambhida Bhaktavrinda ki, This evening is a warm-up. A warm-up for a longer presentation on the prayers of Queen Kunti, right here in Farmington. I don't know if I'll be able to finish them all because there's so many and so wonderful, but we'll see how it goes. Sometime in, what month?
August.
August. I'm going to be coming back for a weekend series on the prayers of Queen Kunti. And
May request your please come.
Description of the life of Queen Kunti. Could you take that camera away? It's very distracting.
Hi.
Thank you. Something that Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us is, before hearing from an exalted person, it's standard etiquette, and there's a spiritual principle involved as well, that you appreciate the person. If you study carefully, I'm sure some of you have studied carefully the first canto of Bhagavatam, there's several examples of introducing a personality, and before hearing from that personality, the persons who are hearing speak, they open their hearts, basically, so that it can be seen as a spiritual principle, and it's a cultural principle. So the prayers of Queen Kunti are very much appreciated in the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam. They're very profound, they're very moving, they're very wonderful. So we're going to be hearing in August Queen Kunti's prayers, and so this is the prelude, the warm-up. It's appreciation of the person who's going to speak these prayers. If we were to ask any of our nice young devotees here, say something about Queen Kunti, there isn't time because it's already 8 o'clock. They would say something, I've done this, they would say she's the mother of the Pandavas, and she's one of the wives of Pandu, and she's the, this and that. So aside from her position, it's her elevated life is very striking. The character that she exhibited throughout her life is very striking, very, very, very wonderful. So we're going to hear something, some of the glories of Queen Kunti this evening. So we'll start, hopefully, with family tree. Well, there's Kunti over here, and Kunti and Kunti and Kunti and Madri. So actually, Kunti is the mother of 3 of the 5 Pandavas. Madri is the mother of the final 2 Pandavas. And the Pandavas, they're the sons of Pandu, who are sons of, well, literally Vyasadeva, but these are the wives, Ambika and Ambalika, were wives of Vichitravirya. And Vichitravirya and Chitrangada were the sons of Shantanu and Satyavati. And of course there's grandfather Bhishma over here. So there's the family tree coming from Kunti. And Kunti, this is from the male side. From the female side, Kunti is the daughter, one of the daughters, of Shurasena. Shurasena was the king of Mathura, and Shurasena had a brother who was the king of Vrindavan. And his name was Parjanya. there's Shurasena Parjanya, and they're in this line of the Vrishni, and over there is the Andaka dynasty. So there's Ugrasena and Ugrasena's son Kamsa. So it's not that Devaki, who married Vasudeva over there on the left, they weren't exactly brother and sister. They were cousin, sister, brother and sister. So when Kamsa took his sister after the wedding marriage to Vasudeva, it's not literally they were brother and sister exactly. They didn't have the same father. Ugrasena was the father. And Vasudeva's father was Shurasena, as was Kunti's father, Shurasena. So in addition to Kunti, there were 4 other daughters of Shurasena, and Vasudeva had 9 other brothers. You can see, so over in the far left, that's Nanda, who was one of the 5 sons of Parjanya, Nanda, Upananda, and so forth. Now I'm going to just take you over this. Understanding things in context is nice. This is royal family, and from the Moon dynasty, as Ram appeared in the Sun dynasty, Krishna appeared in the Moon dynasty. So there's Vrishni over there in the upper left. In the upper right is the Andaka dynasty. So now going back up the line, there's Yadu and Yayati and Nahusha, and you can find these in the 9th canto Bhagavatam. The Sun dynasty and the Moon dynasty are identified up until the time that Krishna is spoken of, and then comes the 10th canto after Krishna is spoken of. So that's where this drawing comes from, or this family line. So we speak of the Yadu dynasty. There's Yadu, or Krishna told the demigod they should take birth in the Vrishni and Andaka dynasty. So they did. And there's some of the persons that did. And then eventually Krishna made his appearance as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Now, this reference is not a Vedic reference, it's a modern historian reference thing. So I'm not going to spend much time on this. But it's, out there in the world of things that are said about Kunti. There's 5 particularly special female heroines. The hero, the male side, and heroines on the female side. And their pictures are here. Actually, there's 6 of them because sometimes they're mixed. Ahalya, Tara, and Mandodari and Sita are from Ramayana. Draupadi and Kunti are from Mahabharata. So they mix. Sometimes it's different sets of 5. But these are very special. They underwent great difficulty in the course of their lives because of their marriage to persons who went through difficulty, and they endured great difficulty because of their good husbands or bad husbands in some cases. But they stuck by religious principle. Whatever their husband did or didn't do, they stuck by religious principle, and therefore they're glorified. There's a verse written here. Ahalya, Draupadi, Kunti, Tara, and Mandodari. Constantly remembering these 5 virgins destroys great failings, etc. Not going to stay with that. But she's amongst 5 very special, great personalities in Mahabharata and Ramayana, for standing by religious principle. Here's from the teachings of Queen Kunti, the introduction. the tragic and heroic figure of Queen Kunti emerges from an explosive era in the history of ancient India, as related in the Mahabharata, India's grand epic poem of, sometimes it says 100 and sometimes it says 110. So they put 110. 110 couplets. Kunti was the wife of King Pandu and the mother of 5 illustrious sons known as the Pandavas. From Mahabharata, the very beginning of Mahabharata, very, very beginning, she was the sister of Vasudeva, and Vasudeva was Lord Krishna's father, so she was the aunt, immediate relative of Lord Krishna. Kunti was born of King Shurasena, and King Shurasena had a very good friend, Kunti Bhoja, another king. And Kunti Bhoja was childless, and so Shurasena was very kind when Pritha, that's what he named his daughter, when she was born, he entrusted the raising of Pritha to Kunti Bhoja. So after some time, she became known as Kunti, and instead of Pritha. So sometimes Arjuna is the son of Pritha, daughter of Shurasena. Again, the Queen Kunti introduction. The Mahabharata relates that Kunti was gifted with beauty and character. She rejoiced in the law or dharma and was great in her vows. She possessed an unusual benediction, very unusual benediction indeed. And the history of that unusual benediction, again in Queen Kunti's introduction, while she was in the house of Kunti Bhoja, who would come to visit the palace but Durvasa Muni. And when Durvasa Muni came to town, everyone ran in all directions because he's a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva who is easily angered and easily pleased, and when he's angered, look out. So they ran in all directions. But Kunti was very innocent and very simple and very pure in heart, and she was delighted with the opportunity to serve Durvasa Muni. And she served the sage so nicely, Durvasa Muni was pleased with her and wanted to give her a benediction. Now, Durvasa Muni happened to have some kind of clairvoyant powers. He could understand that in her mature adult life, because she's just a young girl, a young teenager, that she would have difficulty in the matter of conceiving children. And so he gave her a very special mantra. By this mantra you can call any demigod, and in union with this demigod you can produce a wonderful child. And he left. This is a painting where he's giving her this very special mantra. So what's a little teenage girl going to do when she gets some benediction like that from a great sage? She was really curious. So, in the quiet of the royal palace, she uttered the mantra and called the name of the sun god. And voila, the sun god appeared. This is a very, very beautiful painting. It's it's like a 6-foot tall painting in the back wall of the Chicago temple. It's a very nice painting. So she was shocked. There's the sun god himself standing on the veranda. You called. And she was saying, no, no, no. And he was saying, it's okay. Because by this calling of this mantra, you will be able to conceive a child, but you won't lose your virginity. And with a little persuasion, she accepted. And the sun god left shortly after. Now, it wasn't a walking around for pregnant stage for a long time. Very quickly, the child was born. And he was born, according to the Mahabharata appendix, this reference is there, with all the paraphernalia of a Kshatriya. Bright, glistening earrings, a natural coat of armor on his chest, and eyes resembling a lion, and his shoulders. Even he was a new baby, he was Kshatriya looking baby. So, as was promised by the sun god, the child was born very quickly. She didn't have to walk around as an unmarried, pregnant woman. The child was born, but how would she explain this to people? Well, Durvasa Muni gave me a mantra, and when virginity is intact, and she didn't know what to do. So she prayed and prayed, and she finally came to the conclusion that the sun god would have to protect this child because she wasn't able to do that herself. And so she went to the side of the Ganges River, and in a large wicker basket, she placed the child in the basket, praying all the while to the sun god and others to take care of the child. With tears streaming from her eyes, she placed the child in the river, and downstream the child went, not to be seen by Kunti in a long time. The child was found by a chariot driver, Adi Ratha, a chariot driver of Dhritarashtra. And the chariot driver profession is not a Kshatriya profession, it's a Shudra profession. And so he was raised like that. We'll come back around and visit Karna in a bit. So here she is, a teenage girl, and Kunti Bhoja arranged for her Swayamvar ceremony. Many kings came, and when the kings came, just by the sight of Pandu, and she had heard about the glories of Pandu, very quickly she accepted Pandu as her husband, showing she's garlanding him. In the very beginning part of Mahabharata, she accepted Pandu as her husband, and he accepted her as his wife. After some time, Pandu also married Madri, who was the sister of the king of Madra. And Pandu was a very good king, and a very good husband, and a very good archer. So one evening, he was out practicing archery in the forest, and he heard a sound in some distance, and so he fired an arrow to kill a male and female deer. And the male and female deer, the male deer was a sage who had assumed this form, and when the sage was shot with the arrow in the form of a deer, he assumed his form as a sage, and he cursed Pandu, that as I have died in this way, you will also die in this way if you have union with your wife. And Kidimba gave up his life. It's a very old painting indicating the same. So, Pandu was a very religious man and he was grief-stricken. I'd kill the sage. And so, he decided, although he was the king, he would renounce his kingdom, at least not live in the royal palace, and he would go live a life of asceticism in the forest. He announced that to his wives. And they didn't like that idea at all. Rather, they said, we're your wives. We accepted you as our husband. We will stay by your side. Please allow us to come with you into the forest. We couldn't bear to live in your absence, so Pandu agreed. And he took up a life of asceticism in the forest. And he was very fixed. He was a very elevated person and engaged in all the rituals that a person should do in his position. And as time passed doing all these rituals, his mind began to move to the position of understanding that just as I am offering to my ancestors Pinda, it's also my duty as a king, for the benefit of my forefathers, to provide a child so that they can similarly offer sacrifice to the ancestors. And then he took that thought further and explained to Kunti that as he was unable to provide a child for that purpose, she should accept someone else. At least in the previous age, this was something that was permitted. Kunti didn't like that idea. And so she disclosed to Pandu the benediction of Durvasa Muni. She had this mantra. She could call whatever demigod she wanted, and that demigod could produce a child. Pandu was delighted and gave her the instruction. Please proceed. And so, under the order of her husband, she did. One by one. So, she called Yamaraj. Here's the verses from Mahabharata. O Lady of sweet smiles, I desire offspring, but I have lost my power of procreation. In such instances, the scriptures sanction that another worthy man may beget children on my behalf. So, Kunti called Yamaraj. After worshipping him and repeating an invocation Durvasa Muni had taught her, she united with Dharma and in time gave birth to a boy. As soon as the child was born, a voice with no visible source said, "This child will be called Yudhisthira, and he will be very virtuous. He will be splendid, determined, renounced, and famous throughout the three worlds," similar to the message found in the Bhagavatam. So, after Yudhisthira was born in that way, Pandu said, please make an arrangement where a very, very powerful, heroic, great son will be born. And so she called Vayu. And when Vayu was born, this unembodied voice from the sky said, "This child will be foremost of all strong men." And it's described in Mahabharata. that when Bhima was born, even he was very, very small, one time Kunti was sitting by the side of a cliff with the child on her lap in the forest, and she heard a loud roar of a lion, and she was startled and she stood up, and the child that was in her lap fell off her lap and fell down the cliff. It hit on the rock at the bottom. Imagine how Kunti felt. So, hearing Kunti screaming, Pandu came and they saw the child that landed on the rock and the rock broke. So from his childhood he was understood to be a very mighty person. Really hard to defeat. Then, specifically, Pandu encouraged her to call Indra. And after the child was born, Arjuna appeared. And then this unembodied voice says, "O Kunti, this child will be as strong as Kartavirya and Shibi." Kartavirya Arjuna was a very powerful personality, and King Shibi. "And as invincible in battle as Indra himself, he will spread your fame everywhere and acquire many divine weapons." So all of those things came to be. During the period of time when Drona was training both the Pandavas and the Kauravas in military skill, Arjuna was best, especially in archery. And the very famous situation where the boys were being tested and the bird is in the tree and he asks them, "What do you see?" And they see the tree, they see the bird in the tree, and Arjuna sees the eye of the bird in the tree. That's all he can see. So he was the best of the students of Drona. And as was foretold, he received divine weapons. Varuna, this is a pushkar painting for the publication that never made it, Hridayananda Maharaj's translation of Mahabharata. It was published in Back to Godhead magazine. That's where this illustration comes from. And the other ones that are line drawings like this. Varuna gives Arjuna 2 great quivers of inexhaustible arrows. Somebody have a AAA battery? This advancing thing is not working. See if you can get it. And another occasion, Lord Shiva gave to Arjuna the Pashupat Astra. There was a battle between the two, and Arjuna didn't defeat Lord Shiva, but Lord Shiva couldn't defeat Arjuna. It's a long description. Lord Shiva just simply wanted to test him. Let me see. Lord Shiva simply wanted to test him, and he passed the test, so he gave him some special weapons. Okay, I'll just do it manually. So as was predicted, then later Nakula and Sahadev, Madri didn't want to be left out, so Kunti gave her the mantra. She called the Ashwini Kumaras, and Nakula and Sahadev were born. So there's a nice painting of these 5 brothers, known as the Pandavas, a nice set of deities of the Pandavas. Then came this very unfortunate circumstance in Kunti's life, that her good husband died, overcome by the arrow of Cupid. He was lusting after Madri, his younger wife, and when he had union with her, he immediately died. following the curse of the sage Kadimba. So there's these two queens without a king and 5 young boys to look after. And so they both wanted to enter into the funeral pyre of Pandu. Madri reasoned that, Kunti, you're so good at mothering these boys, you should stay and let me go. She didn't like that idea, but she accepted it. And after Madri had entered into the fire, that left Kunti looking after these 5 boys. So Kunti then consulted the sages in the forest what to do. The sages advised immediately, no delay, go back to the royal palace, take shelter there, so you'll be protected, and the boys can be properly raised. So hearing this indication from the sages, along with rishis and others, of grand procession heading back to the royal palace, and they entered Hastinapur. And everyone was amazed at this grand procession and Kunti and the Pandavas, because they've been in the forest, they've heard, but they hadn't even seen Kunti for a long time, and what to speak of her sons. And everyone, almost everyone, was very happy. And there's a very prominent person who was not at all happy, and that was Duryodhana. Because within the royal family, he was the eldest of 100 sons. In the absence of Pandu in the palace, he was taking over, running everything. Although Yudhisthira was slightly elder to him, they were basically peers of age. And when everyone started glorifying the Pandavas and Kunti, he couldn't take it. So, especially when they would play games, because Bhima was so powerful. You know, boys are boys, and they would wrestle and do boy things. And Bhima would take one of the Kauravas and toss them in the air and go flying, tumbling around. They're just having fun. Duryodhana couldn't stand it. And so a wicked plan was made, headed by his uncle Shakuni. Shakuni was the brother of Gandhari. So when the king of Kandahar, now known as Gandhar, the king of Kandahar accepted that his daughter Gandhari would marry Dhritarashtra. Shakuni accompanied her to the royal palace, and he was a nasty guy. Actually, it's said in Mahabharata, he is the one that corrupted Duryodhana. Not that Duryodhana was a nice fellow, but Shakuni corrupted him. And Shakuni planted the idea that they should kill Bhima. So the plan was made, and the plan was presented to Dhritarashtra, who didn't like it. He said no. But Duryodhana was very clever, and he knew how to manipulate his father's emotions. And he said, if you don't say yes, then I'll take my own life, because I can't stand this. It's too humiliating. I want to kill him. So Dhritarashtra became silent. The plan was made to poison Bhima. And it was a good plan, because one of Bhima's qualities was he was a voracious eater. In fact, he has a name just about that quality, Vrikodar. So they went to a summer place. Very, very amazing description. A 7-story summer palace near a lake, near a river. Marble, opulent, royal, palatial place, and they were playing games, you know, sports and what young boys do. And at the end, there was a big picnic. And Duryodhana personally put enough poison in Bhima's food to kill 20 men. And Bhima ate it all. And at the end of eating it all, felt a little tired. So when the boys, it was towards the evening, they were to go back, he said, let me take a little nap and I'll come and join you after I take a little nap. So they've all gone, he's lying by the side of the river, they tie him up in strong rope and push him into the river, thinking, finished. But this was the Ganges, and the Ganges flows down, 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 so somehow it was arranged all the way down to the bottom regions of the universe where the Nagas are. And the Nagas, when they saw food, they started biting him. But the poison of the Nagas was the exact antidote for the particular poison given to Bhima, and his poison was neutralized. And Bhima's being bitten by these Nagas. He just expanded his body, burst the ropes, and started having this big battle with the Nagas. And the Nagas were being defeated. So the Nagas went back and told the in charge of all the Nagas, Arka, who was the detail, one of these Puranic details. Arka, chief of the Nagas, previously was a Kuru ancestor. He was the great-grandfather of Shurasena from that chart. Shurasena said 7 generations, but Arka was in there. And so he recognized, oh, Bhima, what are you doing here? How nice to see you. And let us honor him. So they arranged for Naga nectar. It's not a Sunday feast nectar, it's lemonade and they just call it nectar. It was Naga nectar. And each one of the pots, several pots, each one would increase the strength of the person who took it by 10,000 elephants, and he drank 7 of them. Whoa. They've never seen anyone do that before, but they've never seen Bhima either. And after drinking 7 of them, he felt tired again. So he took a little nap. And when he woke up, he was already very powerful, the son of Vayu. Very, very powerful. Now he's like mega powerful. And so the Nagas informed Bhima, because they have this power to know things from a distant place, they told him everything that had happened. The plan was to murder him. And they told the whole story, how he got to where he was. And they said, you better go back home now because your mother, Kunti, is worried about you. It's been quite some time. You should go back now. So he went back. And when this is I like this particularly very much. When Bhima didn't come back with all the boys, a mother of 5 boys, and one doesn't come back, she's worried. So what did she do? She went to Vidura. Because Vidura, she didn't have a husband. She had grandfather Bhishma and Vidura. Vidura is the brother of her husband, and very wise. And she expressed her worry. And, you know, Duryodhana is very wicked. I don't know what might have happened. He just spoke the following words, and she was pacified. Those of you that are mothers, imagine. Just hearing from a sadhu, everything's going to be all right, and your worries go away. That's Kunti. So he said, Vyasadeva said that the Pandavas will live a long life And how can Vyasadeva be wrong? So don't worry. Everything's going to be all right. So 8 days passed, and Bhima hadn't returned. Finally, when Bhima returned, he disclosed everything, what happened, because the Nagas told him what happened, and Bhima was ready with his club, and Arjuna was ready with his bow to, let him have it. Duryodhana and his buddies. And Yudhisthira very wisely said, now is not the right time. We've been in the forest for so long, they've consolidated all the alliances and friendships. If there was some conflict, not the right time. Let us just be very much on guard and take action at the proper time. Very good advice for those of us that have to make decisions. What are you going to do when somebody's being an aggressor? He was wise. Not only dharmic, he was very wise. And his brothers wouldn't do anything unless Yudhisthira said, go ahead. So they stopped. At this time, it's another Mahabharata detail, but Balaram had visited Hastinapur, and he detected there's hostility here. So he brought that message back to Krishna. Krishna then sent a minister, Akrura, to go check out the situation. He stayed there for a month. While Akrura was in Hastinapur for a month, he stayed with Akrura, the great devotee of Krishna. And while he was staying with Akrura, there was Kunti, and they had these nice discussions. Akrura, was pacifying Kunti. And there's, so, the Krishna connection, devotees associating with devotees, pacifying the distressed devotee. These things happen today and they happened then. After the attempt to kill Bhima, there were multiple other attempts. The next one was the house of Bak, and at Varanavata. So again, Duryodhana schemed the plan. He had some accomplices. Dhritarashtra didn't like the plan, but he remained silent. And again, Vidura is he's within the royal family, so he knows all the skullduggery that's going on. Hastinapur politics. So he didn't directly disclose to Yudhisthira, but when they were leaving, the plan was suggested, why don't you go on a nice month-long summer vacation in this nice special summer place that will immediately burn as soon as we touch a match to it. Especially designed for you. They understood it's a dirty trick, but they didn't know the detail. But as they were leaving, in enigmatic words, indirectly spoken, Vidura disclosed the plan, kind of like a riddle. And the verse from Mahabharata reads, one who knows there are sharp weapons capable of cutting the body, although not made of metal, is not injured by them. He survives who understands that the consumer of wood and straw does not reach the dwellers of a hole in the forest. Always stay alert. One who keeps his senses under control can never become overcome by an enemy. That was Vidura's parting words, and as they're heading for the summer place, Queen Kunti says to Yudhisthira, what did he say? I didn't get it. And Yudhisthira understood, because he's very wise. that he's indicating that there's going to be an attempt to kill us by fire, and a plan should be made to escape from the fire through a tunnel. Sure enough, after some days, a special tunnel maker was sent to that place, the summer home, and he excavated a tunnel. And when it was the time for the fire to take place, you see in the upper right corner, Bhima is setting the fire, and they're all going into the tunnel, and there on the other side of the tunnel, lo and behold, is Vidura waiting with a boat to take them across the river. And when they reach on the other side of the river, Bhima carries everybody in the dead of night. On his shoulders is a big festival thing happening. That was the evening of when this fire was supposed to be. So leaving the fire situation behind, Bhima carrying everybody on his shoulders all night long until he became a little tired and he set them down. And they took rest. And as they're taking rest, there's Hidimba, a Rakshasa, seeing the situation, thinking, oh, this is wonderful, here's my meal, just came without even going to search for anything. So then Hidimba, Rakshasa Hidimba, had a sister, Hidimbi. And Hidimbi was sent on a reconnaissance mission, go check out the situation. So she assumed a regular form instead of the ugly Rakshasi form. And as soon as she saw Bhima, who was standing guard over the other Pandavas and Kunti, she went, wow, I like him. So she started speaking, sweetly to him and lusty things to him, and Bhima was saying, oh. And in the background, there we see Hidimba, who was really upset. What's my sister doing? So he came crashing out of the forest, had a big battle with Bhima. Guess who won? Bhima let him have it. And when Hidimba was finished, Hidimbi came before Kunti and made a marriage proposal that she wanted to marry Bhima. And, marriage talk, I have all these powers, I can do this and that, and you'll be happy, and Bhima will be happy, please say yes. Yudhisthira was consulted, the elder brother, Vedic culture, and the elder brother Yudhisthira laid out the principles of Dharma, of what must a wife do when married to such a husband as his brother. She said yes to everything, and so they were married. Bhima and Hidimbi were married, and in the course of that marriage, a son was born, who later became a very important hero in the Kurukshetra battle. But even before the Kurukshetra battle, he was very much devoted to the Pandavas. Although he was born of a Rakshasi mother, he had qualities that were not like his uncle. He was very gentle and very, very devoted to the service of the Pandavas. So here are the Pandavas. Everybody else thought the Pandavas died in that fire. So they're still in the forest, kind of not disclosing that they're alive. Vyasadeva meets them. He pacifies them, appreciates that the difficulty they're having to endure is totally unfair, vicious on the part of Duryodhana, and he expresses in so many ways his great affection for them. Because remember, Vyasadeva is the father of Pandu, and Pandavas are the sons of Pandu, so they're like his grandchildren. So the grandfather has great affection for his poor grandchildren. And he then suggested a place that they could go for some time. In Mahabharata described that place that they suggested was Ekachakra. And those of you that know about Lord Nityananda, that's where Lord Nityananda was born, in Ekachakra. But before Nityananda was born, the Pandavas resided there for some time. And they conducted themselves as if they were brahmanas. They went and performed madhukari, begging alms door to door with these big shoulders, and big arms, and strong bodies, doing madhukari in Ekachakra. And while they were in Ekachakra, they were residents in the home of another Brahmana family. They were guests. And it turns out that in Ekachakra, there was a very wicked Rakshasa named Bakasura, different than the Bakasura in Krishna Lila in Vrindavan, the same name, Bakasura. So they made a truce with Bakasura in Ekachakra. Once a month, they would send a bullock cart filled with food and some horses to pull the bullock cart and the driver. And he could eat the bullock cart full of food, the horse, and the driver. And then in rotation, different persons would have to sacrifice a son once a month. It became the time for that particular Brahmana family to sacrifice their son. And they were beside themselves with grief. So Kunti in the background is hearing them discuss, and she stepped forward and said, this shouldn't happen. I will send one of my sons, Bhima. And the Brahmana family said, no, this is not right. You're our guests. We can't accept that. And she said, you don't understand my sons. Don't worry, everything will be all right. Everything will be all right, I assure you. So Bhima took that service, taking the bullock cart full of bhoga, and as he was riding the horse or bullocks with one hand, he was eating everything in the cart with his other hand. So by the time he got to where, that's Bakasura on the left, everything was gone, almost. Bakasura was enraged, so he started attacking Bhima. So Bhima held him off with one hand while he finished with the other hand. So everything was gone, and then they had this big battle. And those of you that have been to Ekachakra, you have to know something special, but there's a place where the body of Bakasura was tossed, this humongous body, through the air, some miles through the air, and came for a crash landing. And they have the bones of Bakasura's huge creature in the side of one temple, Pandava temple, in some part of Ekachakra. It's a nice place. So, after Baka was killed, they're still in the forest, and as they're walking along a path, dressed as Pandavas, as Brahmanas in disguise, they see a whole group of people heading for a Swayamvar ceremony. Some Brahmanas and some Kshatriyas, and the path was filled with people. That's what's going on. It was the Swayamvar of Draupadi. So they went along. And when they went along, they saw the whole situation. Down at the bottom, this is a nice painting. There's a lake or pond of water, and the pond of water, above the pond of water was a whirling disc that had a hole in it, and on the other side of the hole in it was a fish, a golden fish. So the Swayamvar challenge was made specifically so that only Arjuna could win, because that's what Drupad wanted. He wanted Draupadi to marry Arjuna. It's a long story, as Mahabharata is a long story, because it was Arjuna that defeated King Drupad. So he didn't hold enmity towards him. He wanted his daughter, Draupadi, to marry Arjuna. with that alliance, he would be very powerful. So he made an arrangement that only Arjuna could win. So when they came into the assembly, the sister of Draupadi, whose name was, the brother of Draupadi, Drishtadyumna. Long story, as the Mahabharata stories are long. Drishtadyumna was created out of a fire, a sacrificial fire, in order to defeat Drona. And then there was a bonus, Draupadi came also. So Drishtadyumna is announcing to the assembled kings and princes what the deal is. How are you going to, there's the bow, you have to string the bow, and then go to the pond of water, look at the pond of water, you can't look at the target, and the rippling water, and see the whirling disc that has a hole in it, and shoot the target on the other side. Forget it. They couldn't even string the bow. But, lo and behold, someone was able to string the bow. And who is that person able to string the bow? Karna. Karna strung the bow. And then Draupadi stepped forward and said, sorry, you can't be a competitor in this competition because I'm a princess, and a Kshatriya can marry another king or a Brahmana, but not a Shudra. You're disqualified, you can't enter into the contest. As the vernacular goes in ISKCON, he was fried. Really upset. And he wanted to get back at Draupadi like anything. And that came to play later on in Mahabharata. So no one was able to be successful. And so one of the Brahmanas in the group stepped forward, at least dressed as a Brahmana, was Arjuna, and said, may I participate? And Drupad said, well, of course, you're a Brahmana, my daughter is a princess, Kshatriya, so you can participate. Notice who's there in the assembly, by the way. Krishna and Balaram. What were Krishna and Balaram doing in the assembly? Here's what they were doing in the assembly. When it was said that the Pandavas had died in the burning of the house of Black, Krishna and Balaram went to attend the funeral. Now Krishna is omniscient. He knew that they didn't die, but he went anyways because he wanted to see the Pandavas. So this was the circumstance of seeing the Pandavas, his dear devotees, especially Arjuna. So Arjuna was accepted as a competitor, and he looked into the reflection of the rippling water and so forth. Here's another painting of the same. Looks a little different. There's Draupadi, who is... Another one of Draupadi's name is Krishna, because her complexion was blackish. So Krishna and Krishna. There she is with the garland, ready to garland her husband to be. There's another painting. There's another painting where he's cheating, you looking. But this is the artist. He didn't cheat. And the eye of the fish was pierced. It came clattering to the ground. All the kings were totally surprised. Draupadi went forward and garlanded her new husband, Arjuna. And all Bedlam broke loose as they were departing. All the other kings and princes started a big battle. So Bhima picked up a trunk of a tree, and Arjuna with his arrows, and Kurukshetra battle, even before the Kurukshetra battle happened, took place right there in Drupad's palace. And the two defeated everybody, including Karna and Duryodhana and everybody else. So now back to Queen Kunti. So these boys, the 5 brothers, were just out for, attending this function that they saw so many were attending. So they came to the place where Kunti was staying. From outside, Arjuna called in and said, "Oh, Mother Kunti, we have a very wonderful surprise. A gem of a gift has been received by me." So from inside she calls back out and said, "Very well, share amongst yourselves. And then when they brought her inside, whoops, share amongst yourselves, how is this? Unprecedented. So, but they were so, the Pandavas were so attached to the principle of accepting the word of their mother, they had to follow the word of their mother. But how were they to follow the word of marrying one wife? Multiple men marrying one wife. It usually works the other way around, not that way. So what did they do? They went to Vyasadeva and asked Vyasadeva what to do. We have to follow Dharma, which includes accepting the word of our mother, but how are we going to do this? And Vyasadeva explained. And Drupad was also involved in the discussion that in her previous life, Draupadi had undergone austerities in worship of Lord Shiva with the intention of having a good husband. So there's different versions of Mahabharata, of course, but one of those versions was she prayed 5 times when Shiva appeared. She said 5 times, "Let me have a qualified husband." 5 times. So Shiva said, "So be it. You'll have 5 husbands." That's one version of Mahabharata. There's different versions. And so Vyasadeva said, "How can the words of Lord Shiva be not fulfilled? It must be fulfilled." So it certainly is a very unique circumstance. And he went on, Vyasadeva, saying that Draupadi, when she appears, she's actually an expansion of the goddess Lakshmi. Now this is, another version of Mahabharata, where Vyasadeva pulled Drupad to the side. Again, there's different versions of Mahabharata, but he wanted to show him a special vision. And the special vision is that Drupad saw the blazing form of Indra that each brother had possessed in their previous life. So these are not ordinary personalities, in other words. Drupad said, "Okay, Vyasadeva, I get it. This is not an ordinary circumstance. This is an exceptional circumstance. You're giving your benediction. Let my daughter become married." Here's the discussion up top with Vyas, Drupad, Yudhisthira, and the other brothers, and Queen Kunti. Here on the bottom painting, he's showing the vision where Draupadi is a partial incarnation of the goddess of fortune, and they're previously in the position of Indra, etc. So the marriage was agreed upon. Yudhisthira accepted. "We shall all marry the blessed Draupadi." And so the marriage took place. And when the marriage took place, Krishna took the position of being the bard. He was singing the glories of the Pandavas. By the way, that's a lesser position than the person who was being glorified. But he was happy to do that. He loves to serve his devotees. So after some time passed, and it's already 9 o'clock, and we haven't finished her life yet, Vidura went to the place where they were staying, and he recommended that Kunti and the Pandavas come out of this seclusion position and return to Hastinapur. And so, under Vidura's advice, they returned to Hastinapur, and some agreement was made by Dhritarashtra that for the time being, half of the kingdom would be given to the Pandavas, and another half of the kingdom would be given to his sons as an interim arrangement. So Indraprastha was built. in the Khandava forest. The Khandava forest, there was an arrangement where Mayadanava was at risk of life. Arjuna protected him. Mayadanava came to Arjuna and said, I'd like to express my gratitude for your protecting my life and do something for you. Arjuna turned to Krishna, and Krishna said, you can build a very nice palace in Khandava forest. So Mayadanava that was his gift. Indraprastha city. Grand, fantastic, fabulous, beautiful, mystical. And remember, Krishna is still there. That means that, the members of the Yadu dynasty from Dwarak were also there, including Krishna's queens, and they invited Duryodhana to come and check it out. And when Duryodhana came to check it out, one of the mystical features of Indraprastha was that land looked like water and water looked like land. So when he was walking across the land, he fell in a lake. And the queen started to laugh. And Yudhishthira said, this is not nice, don't laugh, he's a royal family member. Krishna said, laugh. Laugh a lot. And the purpose was to aggravate, irritate the easily irritatable Duryodhana, so that it would precipitate what Krishna wanted, the destruction of the wicked kings. This is the chronological event where Yudhishthira arranges for the Rajasuya sacrifice, so he becomes, as the king, the prince regent, the incumbent king. This is where Shishupal gets, the talking part of his body removed from the rest of his body, because the guest of honor was being glorified, Krishna. A grand ceremony for this Rajasuya Yajna being shown in this illustration, pushcart line drawing. Here's a very, very, very expanded, it's so detailed, it gives the name of who everybody is and where everybody sat, and the ladies that are up top and who they are, and the whole pecking order, the whole thing. In this Indraprastha city. Grand event. Duryodhana is seething. So a plan is made to take the kingdom by connivery. So the dice game is arranged unwillingly, and unwittingly. Yudhishthira participates. They lose everything, including Draupadi. Krishna comes and protects Draupadi. There's many, many beautiful paintings depicting this. Hey Krishna, hey Govinda. Krishna comes, unlimited sorry. Dushasana becomes exhausted. And then, after all of that, an arrangement is made. It's details and details, but an arrangement is made that the Pandavas would depart the royal palace, the royal position, and be in exile for some time. When they came back, they would resume the kingdom. But in the final year of their being in exile, if they were detected, then it would cycle around again. The period of incognito would be extended, or the exile would be extended. But meanwhile, Kunti, all this time, Kunti is staying with Vidura, because he's a devotee, and she's a devotee. The devotees like devotee association. So she was protected. Then the pictures on the left show this in King Virat's palace. The 5 Pandavas and Draupadi took different positions other than royal positions. chose. Up on the upper right, Bhima, he became a cook. Very appropriate. In the middle one on the left, Arjuna became a dance teacher. Eunuch dance teacher for the daughter of King Virat. And so forth. Each of them. And down in the lower right, Draupadi became a hairdresser. You know, like very, very humble, simple positions. Meanwhile, the chief general, Kichaka, developed some uncontrollable attraction for Draupadi. Her name, Charindri, indicates her profession, the hairdresser. And so, seeing her, he, wanted to be with her, wanted her to be with him. So, the general went to the king's wife and asked to make some arrangements so they could have a little rendezvous. And Draupadi knew what his mentality was. She didn't want to. And the queen said, I'll protect you, don't worry, just... So she brought some things, and he said, some inappropriate messages to her. She wanted nothing to do with him for a variety of, utmost because she's completely in fidelity with her husbands. What to speak of, this guy's a creep. But he tried to woo her. She came before the king. He grabbed her, very similar to the situation with Draupadi, and disgraced her right in the royal assembly. In the royal assembly, Bhima was standing there, Yudhishthira was standing there. Bhima wanted to clobber him, right in the royal assembly. But to clobber means it becomes known who he is. So Yudhishthira stopped him. Then Draupadi, in the evening, went to Bhima, basically said, protect me. This guy's a monster. So they made a plan. The plan was she would arrange a private rendezvous at night with the general, Kichaka. But instead of her being at the rendezvous place, guess who was going to be there? Bhima. And Bhima let him have it. He reduced his body to a box. Totally decimated. And when they found this box that used to be the body of the general, everyone understood, it's this fellow. And she's the one that induced the whole thing. So they started getting Draupadi's case and all this intrigue and yada yada yada. It stopped because the king stopped it. But meanwhile, word spread. They didn't have email and text messages, but word spread anyways. That the general, this powerful general of King Virat, has been pulverized. There's only one person that can do that. And this is during the incognito period. So the Pandava, the Kauravas, brought their entire army with a plan. And the plan was they pillaged the cows of the king. And the cow herds came to the king saying, protect us. You're the king. The whole Kaurava army is out there. They've taken our cows. They're your cows, but we're protecting them. We can't protect them. Please protect us. So the son of the king said, I'll go. I just need a chariot driver. Draupadi said, this fellow, he's a good chariot driver. The dance instructor. He said, no, he's a sissy. I don't want a sissy. I want it. She said, he has that skill. I'll tell you, he has that skill. So they went, and the son of Virat got defeated. Arjuna took the chariot to the place where his weapons were held, and he took the weapons down from the Sami tree, and with those weapons, Arjuna single-handedly defeated the entire Kaurava army. And when the son of the king told the king what happened, the king said, "You're not a dance instructor. Who are you? Now wait a minute. There's this one, that's Bhima. And you with the archery skill, you're Arjuna. And there's Yudhisthira and Kulasade. And there's Draupadi. You've been in this incognito position right in my palace. I'd like to honor you that you marry my daughter." And Arjuna said, "No, I can't marry your daughter because she was my student. So a teacher can't marry a student. But I have a son, and he's of marriageable age. Very suitable match. So Abhimanyu married Uttara." We're almost done. So they came back to Hastinapur because their period of being in exile was over. And they were doomed now to become the king. And, Duryodhana wasn't going to have it. It looked like a big battle. And so Krishna came as the peace messenger. And he stayed at the home of Vidura, as was Kunti staying at the home of Vidura. It's in this situation, specifically about Kunti's life, she then decided, before this battle happens, I need to go speak to my firstborn son, Karna. Because of the time, the detail is so amazing. It's an amazing, those of you that like drama, it's an amazing drama. Bhakti Marg Swami has a whole script for it if you want. And it was done in Mayapur, and they traveled around and did it to us. It's a very, very tear-jerking episode. The very enigmatic figure of Karna being told by Kunti that you are my son. Why didn't you say this before? So that the very heart-breaking drama unfolded. But he had been abandoned by her and been abandoned by his cousins. And he had enmity towards Draupadi and enmity toward the Pandavas. And the only one that gave him shelter was Duryodhana. He was going to stand by Duryodhana's side. So that's what happened. There's more to go, but there isn't. It's already finished. The battle begins. Duryodhana is taking as his chief general. Big battle. Ghastly battle. So many generals are killed. Abhimanyu is cruelly killed. Gatotkacha is enlisted to fight with Karna. He ends up, Arjuna destroys and defeats Karna. It's a long story. Like every saint, Mahabharata is a long story. Under Krishna's direction, Arjuna kills Karna, and grandfather Bhishma's death is there. Ashvatthama comes after that into the Pandavas' camp and kills the sleeping sons of Draupadi. And then the attempt to kill Maharaj Parikshit. Finally, after all this intrigue, Maharaj Yudhisthira is installed on the throne, and the Pandavas are now in charge of the kingdom. And at this point is where Kunti's prayers begin. Because Krishna is now going to return back to Dwarka. And for all of this difficult time that Kunti has been through, she puts all of that aside. The greater difficulty for her is separation from Krishna. and pouring from her heart are wonderful prayers, honoring and glorifying and appreciating Krishna and her relationship with Krishna and the glories of Krishna. So these are some of the, we've been hearing, the glories of Kunti's exalted position, and how at every step Krishna protected her because of her complete dependence and faith in him, as well as her sons and as well Draupadi. Certain difficulties, but protection because of exclusive devotion. So we'll hear in her prayers about how something like that can happen to a great soul. Any discussion? Yes?
Philosophical question.
Sure, why not?
Did Krishna precipitate these people making bad decisions in order that there could be no ethically and I took that from the people who mentioned Krishna's always been on both sides, possibly precipitating the bad guys become the bad guys.
I didn't get it. Did you get it?
He was asking, Maharaj was asking, did Krishna precipitate the bad decisions that were taken by other people so that the battle will happen? That's how I understand.
Oh, by Krishna encouraging everybody to laugh, specifically?
That is the one time I heard you say that, you know.
Well, Krishna appeared, according to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna appeared for 3 reasons. And one of them was to relieve the burden of the earth of demoniac kings. So that was his mission, and he was fulfilling his mission. Because Yudhisthira was arguing, Duryodhana is a good leader, he's so organized, he's so proficient, the kingdom is running very nicely, let it be. Krishna saying no, because he's demoniac. And I can't leave this earth planet with a demoniac king in charge of the earth planet. He's got to be removed. That's why I came. He didn't say all things like that, but that's why I'm here. So he needs to be removed. So it's part of Krishna's sanction or plan for him to be removed. So how Krishna did that and why Krishna chose to do the way that he chose to do, that's in his hand. He could have done it zillion different ways. And, you know, I've learned not to question Krishna. Why did he do it this way instead of that way? I wouldn't necessarily have done it that way. Nor can I understand why Krishna did it the way that he did it instead of the way that I would do it. Part of the intrigue of Mahabharata, like any other literature where it's good versus evil, is persons who are evil exhibit their evilness when prompted. Whereas a person who's good, when prompted, exhibits goodness. So, you know, on the other side, why did Krishna permit the Pandavas to undergo so much trouble? He's showing their greatness. A specific example of that, Krishna wanted to show the greatness of Arjuna by the following. When Ashvatthama killed the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas. Now why did Krishna permit that? 5 sleeping sons being killed, beheaded, while asleep. Why did Krishna permit that? And then Arjuna took a vow that he brings back Ashvatthama, and I'm gonna kill him. You can pour the oblations into the funeral pyre standing on his head. That was his vow. And Draupadi said, "Don't do it."